Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you for joining us for this press conference following the EU-Georgia Association Council. A particular welcome to those correspondents joining us from Georgia, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy of the European Commission, Josep Borrell, Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili, and Commissioner of Neighbourhood and Enlargement Oliver Várhelyi will debrief you on the meeting, and then we will take a few questions. High Representative, you have the floor.
Thank you. I am very pleased to welcome here in Brussels to the Prime Minister, Irakli Garibashvili. We have been meeting on the framework of the Association Council, which is a very important moment by itself, and additionally, it has been taking place in a pivotal moment for your country, Prime Minister. Because since the last parliamentary elections in autumn, the European Union has repeatedly said that all political actors need to find common ground and look for a way forward from the current political situation. This is especially essential, important, at a moment when Georgia must address the coronavirus pandemic and to move forward with a wide-reaching reform agenda that has to include electoral reform and judicial reform. And it's for the government elected to provide inclusive leadership. Let me stress, in the presence of the Prime Minister, that a special responsibility rests with the ruling party and the government to find a way forward. And also that boycotting parliamentary activity is not helpful for a functioning democracy and for political pluralism. It's not by boycotting Parliament that we can look for solutions in the framework of political pluralism. All parties, all political actors within Georgia must look at the wider consequences of the current situation, and we have been asking everybody to put the interest of Georgia people first and find compromises. You know that the European Union has long been engaged in facilitating dialogue between the political parties in Georgia, and recently we moved from facilitation of the dialogue to mediation after the visit of the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, to Zurabishvili in early March. Today at the meeting and in the formal part of our conversations, we took stock of these mediation efforts, which are being led by President Michel personally and by his personal envoy, Christian Danielson, that continues to be in Tbilisi as we speak, presenting several points in order to get full engagement on the issues that have to be solved. Unhappily, there is not agreement yet, but I understand from my discussions with the Prime Minister that he is committed to constructive cooperation and progress. And the same thing has to be done by the opposition. Mr. Danielson will make concrete proposals along the lines we have been talking in the coming days, and for sure, as in any situation like this, give and take will be needed from both sides to find a mutually agreeable outcome. But this was not the only thing we talked in our Association Council today. This meeting was also an opportunity to assess overall cooperation on our comprehensive and wide-reaching association agreement. As Commissioner in charge knows very well, we haven't just been talking about the current political stalemate, but also we have been welcoming the first vaccines that Georgia has received through COVAX, to which the European Union is the largest donor. More will follow. We know how important it is for Georgia to move ahead swiftly with its vaccination rollout towards a green, sustainable recovery. We have been mobilizing significant funds to support this. We discussed the all-important justice and electoral reform. An independent and accountable judiciary not only underpins a strong democracy, it also attracts external investors and therefore growth. I stress today that Georgia must deliver on its justice reform commitments, including by reforming the selection process of Supreme Court judges to ensure public trust. An independent judiciary is the cornerstone of any democratic system. We discuss also opportunities to increase the number of exchanges between Georgia and EU citizens in the fields of education, research, sport, and there are a lot of them. Believe me, since 2017, almost 1.2 million of visa-free visits have been made by Georgia citizens to the Schengen area, and we look forward to many more in the future. Unhappily, at the same time, there has been a high number of unfunded asylum applications in some EU member states. Effective implementation of the legislation on the pre-departure check is crucial in this sense. And finally, we have had an open exchange on the Georgian breakaway regions and the regional situation in the Caucasus. Needless to say that the European Union fully supports Georgia's territorial integrity and is engaged in bringing lasting peace, stability, and conflict resolution through our special representative for the region and our European Union monitoring mission. We have been talking a lot about the role of Russia in the Caucasus, and I want to thank the Prime Minister for coming here today and sharing these thoughts. I repeat, Georgia is a certain political crossroad. I would say, in pure English, time is of the essence. It means time matters. And Georgia citizens need their representatives to focus on the country's long-term interests. As European Union, we only have the best interest at our heart. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank High Representative Borrell and Commissioner Varela for a warm welcome, and special thanks to the Association and Council for engaging in wide-ranging bilateral meetings. Today's Association Council marks the highest level institutional meeting between EU and Georgia since the start of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Let me begin by reiterating Georgia's deep commitment to join the European Union as a strong, reliable, and democratic partner. Georgia represents an important platform of democracy in a turbulent geopolitical region. We see our future with the European Union. We are committed to go down the difficult but rewarding path of reforms. In this process, we very much value the EU's close engagement by advancing Georgia's European aspirations. President Michel's recent visit to Georgia is a clear and welcome sign of EU's commitment to Georgia. For our part, as a thriving democracy, our pledge to submit an EU membership applications in 2024 is a strong motivation for us to advance on all necessary political and economic reforms, in line with our commitments under the Association Agreement. The EU has been one of the major donors of Georgia's development. We value the rapid assistance that the EU delivered to our country in our relentless fight against the COVID-19 from the very start. EU's financial and technical support remains essential for our efforts to recover from the consequences of the pandemic and advance on our ambitious reform agenda. Despite the pandemic, Georgia has managed to keep on the reform track and advance further on implementation of the Association Agreement. We adopted a number of legislative packages that ensure implementation of European and international standards across different areas, including energy efficiency, labor rights, human rights, and anti-discrimination, the environment, market surveillance, and others. Most importantly, Georgia held parliamentary elections in October 2020, which marked a historic transition of the country towards a parliamentary democracy. The elections were recognized as competitive with overall fundamental rights respected. Today we discussed possibilities of how to make EU-Georgia relations even more dynamic and forward-looking. Our efforts are focused on building stronger linkages and reducing the political and physical distance and differences with the European Union. Georgia needs more opportunities for deeper integration with the European Union. For us, gradual and full integration into the EU single market will be the next milestone to this end. Georgia is the EU's gateway to Asia. We can play a significant role as Europe's alternative transport hub and an energy route. Therefore, enhanced connectivity between the European Union and Georgia is one of the priorities that we both share and thrive for. We believe that the economic potential of the Black Sea is yet to be fully realized. We also discussed the peaceful resolution of the Russia-Georgia conflict. We value the European Union's staunch support for Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. I want to stress the recent landmark decision of the European Court of Human Rights, which attested that Russia is occupying and exercising effective control over Abkhazia and Tkhinvali regions of Georgia. EU's strong commitment and contribution through maintaining its monitoring mission, mediation within the Geneva international discussions, and support through its non-recognition and engagement policy is of vital importance for us, especially at the background of the overall security situation in the region. We informed the EU about grave human rights violations in the occupied territories, including the recent case of illegal imprisonment of Mr. Zaza Gacheladze. So, in the end, High Representative Commissioner, to conclude, on behalf of the Georgian delegation, I want to thank you for this opportunity and express hope to see you next time in Tbilisi, Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Commissioner Vaheydi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It would be a commonplace for me to tell you that we had a very important and timely meeting today, but this time I think it is very true. We discussed at length how to tap into the full potential of the association agreement and how to provide the further tangible benefits for the citizens of Georgia. We covered the challenges which lie ahead of us, both of us: recovery, resilience, and reform. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, the European Union has been quick to react and show solidarity with Georgia. We are providing key medical supplies and have mobilized over 183 million euros in COVID-19 assistance last year. We committed 150 million euros in macrofinancial assistance and to support SMEs and the most vulnerable. Our focus is now on the vaccination campaigns, of course. I was very pleased to see that on Saturday morning, the first vaccines were actually delivered to Georgia through the COVAX initiative, where we are the biggest donor and we are the biggest supporter of this initiative. While preparing to deliver vaccines through EU vaccine sharing, which is something we are working on, we will continue to help Georgia to prepare for its vaccination campaign, which has successfully been launched yesterday. Our assistance to the Georgian people will not stop here. We want to support you to build back better for a green, digital, just and resilient recovery from the crisis. And as you have said, Prime Minister, our priority is connectivity, 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 be it energy, be it transport, be it digital. The EU is Georgia's biggest trading partner, and we need to build on that. We agreed to address bottlenecks for products with key export potential, and we committed to further support the diversification of Georgia's export to the EU. And we need growth and jobs. This is another topic I think we have agreed. Growth and jobs quickly, because this is the foundation of any recovery. We need to build bigger and more accessible bridges between Georgia and Europe, especially when it comes to the accessibility of the Black Sea as a trade route. It is equally important that Georgia keeps up the reform momentum and continues its approximation to EU standards and regulations. In this regard, we positively noted the progress made on the public procurement and the labor standards, but we also stressed the need for continued reform, in particular with regard to the judiciary and the rule of law. As High Representative also underlined, we touched upon the developments in Georgia since the parliamentary elections last autumn. And I would just conclude with one word on that, one sentence on that, that we believe that democracy must prevail. And both sides need to engage in a constructive dialogue that is leading us to a solution that are in line with the Constitution and democratic principles. Finally, let me say a word on the Eastern Partnership, which is very much in the focus this year. Based on the policy objectives defined last year, we are currently working on an ambitious post-2020 reform and investment agenda. We intend to front-load economic recovery and connectivity while ensuring that citizens remain at the heart of our policies. I'm also pleased that Georgia remains strongly committed and engaged in this framework, and we look forward to further discussions and fruitful summit later on this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we open the floor to your questions. As you know, you need to virtually raise the hands, and then we will unmute you. I see the hand of Salo Abulashvili. You will be unmuted if you can ask your question. Thanks. Please. You will be unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, now we can hear you. You can ask your question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, my question will be addressed to Mr. Borrell. As you know, the political opposition in Georgia considers SNAP's parliamentary elections as a solution for a current political crisis.
Sorry,
Yes.
could you repeat your question because we could not hear you, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Slowly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Calm down,
not
calm down.
shout, please.
So, as you know, the political opposition in Georgia considers SNAP parliamentary elections as a solution for current political crisis in the country. As political situation deteriorates over time, do you think that new parliamentary elections can be efficient way out from the crisis and guarantee for the stabilization in the country? Thank you very much.
It's not up to me to decide if there have to be new elections in Georgia. The only thing I can say you is the OSCE has considered these elections free and fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
And now I have Ricard. If you can, you have the floor. If you can present yourself and your media.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, so Ricard Josviak, Radio Free Europe. A question for Mr. Garibashvili. Are you ready to consider new elections in your country? Are you ready to consider the release of oppositional politicians? And are you ready to undergo deep judicial reforms in your country? And for Mr. Varey and for Mr. Borrell, can you explain to me why it is the European Council President that is engaged with Georgia via Mr. Danielson, his envoy, and not the Enlargement Neighbourhood Commissioner, the High Representative, or even the EU Special Representative for South Caucasus? Thank you.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I'll start by responding to your last question, which was regarding the judicial reform. As it was mentioned here, this is of critical importance for us as well. And we are absolutely committed to do the judicial reforms. And we know that we made lots of progress in that area since 2012. We had really catastrophic situation. I would not exaggerate to say this when we came to power in 2012. But we made lots of reforms, so like three waves of reforms in judiciary. We're absolutely committed and determined to continue these reforms. As for your question, second, regarding the release of, as you said, prisoners, politicians, being a politician is not an immunity, first of all. If a politician commits a crime, of course, or conducts some illegal activities, of course, he or she must be accountable for it and responsible for it. And therefore, it is not up to me to decide when or how to release or not to release the prisoners. It is about the rule of law, it is about the judiciary system, it is about the court decision, whether to put someone in jail or not, or to release someone from the prison. And as for the first question regarding the snap elections, it is also, as it was mentioned here by High Representative, I would use the same kind of statement. It is not up to me to decide to have snap elections or not. It is said very clearly into the Constitution. We had very free and fair and transparent elections in 2020 October. All international organizations, OSCE, ODIHR, and all international observers acknowledged these elections as free and fair and competitive, and therefore the next parliamentary elections in Georgia will be held in 2024. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. High Representative.
Well, let me stress that this association council that has attracted a lot of interest is maybe because it's not business as usual. It's not a council that takes place in calm waters. No? We are in a difficult moment. This is not business as usual. We are talking about internal political problems of Georgia, which is, by the way, not the most important aspect of our association. Association doesn't look at the internal political fight of the countries with whom we associate, and we cannot avoid talking about it. And I want to remember you that the President of the European Council, according with the treaty, holds the highest external representation of the European Union in the world, is the highest representative of the European Union in the world. And during a visit to Georgia, he considered it necessary to try to give a hand and to help to solve an internal issue. That's what he did. And later, in order to continue this effort, he considered it necessary to nominate a special envoy, Mr. Danielson, who has an internal mandate to look at and to work on and to help with the internal issues of Georgia, whilst the special representative that, as High Representative I have for the Caucasus region, has an external aspect. It's not about the internal problems of each country, but how to deal with the external relation side. And I think that it clarifies very well which is the role of each one of them. We have additionally to that head of delegation in Georgia, which is helping Mr. Danielson and working with him hand in hand in order to make him aware of every detail of the internal situation in Georgia that he has to know, because he is our delegate there. And then for sure we have a commissioner in charge of the Eastern relationship and the adhesion. Well, Georgia is still not on the way of the adhesion, but it's in a clear European perspective.
Thank you. I see the hand of Ramaz. Please, you have the floor. Yes. Yes, please present yourself and your media. Thanks.
Ramaz Khapiashvili, Mtawari. My question is to the Prime Minister. Yesterday you said that the government of Georgia is ready to look for solutions, but they won't be done at the expense of Georgia state interests. My question is, what exactly did you mean by conceding state interests? Or maybe there was any proposal from the opposition that you might think was against our national interests? And also, what concessions is ready the Georgian Dream to make in order for this political crisis to be resolved as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. We made it very clear from the very beginning that we were and are ready to continue this dialogue with the opposition. We made a number of constructive efforts. We did our best in order to de-escalate the tension, reduce the polarization, and to come up with some ideas, some solutions. We've been very creative and we've been very actively engaged. Now, I don't want to go into details because this negotiation process is still in progress, As it was mentioned here, Mr. Danielson is in Tbilisi right now. He's having meetings with the opposition and also with the Georgian Dream representatives, and therefore I would rather wait and see what is the final outcome of these consultations. As for your second question regarding what I meant when I said that we would not make anything at the expense of the national interest or the state interest, I want to say something that is in the interest of every Georgian, which is that we must, no matter, regardless of our different opinions or different political affiliations, we must all respect the rule of law. This is our unified approach. This is our intention to build strong democratic institutions. Taking decisions that will undermine the judiciary system, the rule of law, is not in the interest of our country. And that's what I meant yesterday when I made this statement about not making any decision at the expense of the state. And this is basically a very general attitude or kind of remark that I wanted to make about that comment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And one last question, and it goes to Ketevan. So please raise your, Ketevan, please, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you present yourself and
Thank
your
you.
media, please?
TV Imedi Ketevan Kardava, thank you so much for taking my question. Mr. High Rep and Mr. Commissioner, as the association agreement is very dynamic in nature, are you ready to consider the further areas of cooperation? Because Georgia is going to apply for membership by 2024. Is the EU ready to? And the second point, I'm sure that now all political parties in Georgia are watching this press conference. And Mr. High Rep, can you once again tell them your recommendations? What is your main message at the end of the meeting? Thank you very much. Merci.
Maybe you can talk about the European perspective of Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on the DCFTA, so the free trade agreement that we have with Georgia, yes, we have received very clear messages from Georgia that Georgia would like to extend the number of areas where we are cooperating, and we are ready to do that. We are ready to engage with every partner country in the Eastern Partnership who would like to do more with us. On the other hand, I also need to underline that in the DCFTA there are still many possibilities for extending our cooperation. So our advice would be first to use all the tools and opportunities that we have in the DCFTA signed with Georgia. And it follows from that of course it is the sovereign decision of any country to apply for EU membership, and it will be the sovereign decision of our member states to consider this application and to decide on this application. For the time being, we are focusing our efforts on speeding up the implementation of the DCFTA.
Mr. High Representative.
Well, I can only repeat what I already said, which is a repetition of what President Charles Michel has been saying since he visited Georgia and was involved trying to help to solve the current political situation. It's clear, coming from the European Union, that we believe that all political parties, all institutions, all actors have to put the interests of the Georgian people first. That all political parties need to find common ground and a way forward. That is to the government to provide inclusive leadership. That is to the government have a special responsibility as ruling party and the government to find a way forward. that boycotting parliament is not conducive to a functioning democracy and to political pluralism, and that everybody has to refrain from provocative actions and rhetoric and to work to find compromises.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This concludes our press conference today. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the journalists. Thank you to the interpreters. And thank you to everyone. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.